and Eddie Hearn. I want to be on ESPN for my fighter because it's the best place, the best fight to be made. And I have to do a deal with Top Rank, or I have to do a deal with Eddie, and then I'm co-promoting them. But then they're deciding the money. They're deciding the opponents. I don't have any undercard slots. I'm not being paid the same respect a normal co-promoter would make. And I have to sit there and act like I'm happy. I'm like, I'm not a kid anymore. I'm in my late 50s. To be quite frankly honest, I think I've proven everything I need to prove about myself in the business of boxing. And
would you consider that you'd still be getting fucked over then? Would it be easy to say it that way in time?
Yeah, of course I'm getting fucked over. But I'm not the only one. I'm not pointing at myself like I'm being, it's just me. I think I might be, in the United States at least, the biggest promoter with the biggest stable and the most significant promoter at the moment who's getting fucked over. But it's not an open marketplace for any promoter unless you have a company. Right now, there are only 3 entities spending a lot of money in American boxing: the Zone USA, PBC, if you consider it an entity, and ESPN/Top Rank.
Wow. I was letting you guys hear a segment of an IFL TV interview with Lou Dibella. And Lou Dibella, that was a piece of him explaining how the business of boxing works from his view, from his perspective, okay? Lou Dibella has been in the business for a very long time, for at least 30 years, okay? He was with HBO for 11 years. He was the boxing programmer over there for 11 years, and a lot of good fights that he helped make, okay? And he's still a promoter, of course, but he's not with those 3 entities that he mentioned. He's not with PBC or Fox. He's not with Top Rank, and he's not with the Zone USA. So what happens, he has to let his fighter fight on one of these networks, and then he has to share, he has to have profits cut with him. Will cut with the network or the promoter that's in charge of that network. So he has to bring someone in to make these fights happen because he needs his fighter showcased on that platform. Okay, so he had a lot of interesting things to say about boxing overall. And one thing I can tell you about Lou Dibella is one of the realest people that you will meet, because he's not a person that thought it was necessary to kiss ass to a particular network. Okay, he wasn't going to do that because he knew, well, hey, I can work with all 3. Okay, I could work with all 3. I can get my fighters exposure the way they need to be exposed, and in how he was trying to do it to be his own independent entity, being in the business that long, working for HBO, which went belly up, was so that he could get these fights that he, from his fighters to all these different networks for these other fighters. That's why we did have, Josh Taylor and Regis Prograis. Those are the reasoning for those type fights. You know what I mean? Golovkin and Sergey Deverenchenko. Those type of fights. And those fights are because of Lou Dibella. Okay? Lou Dibella is that guy that he tells it how it is. He doesn't give a shit really about what people think, honestly. So he doesn't have anything to hide. There's no filter. There's no false agenda. It's nothing like that. And I want to go over some of the things that he did say in this particular interview. First of all, the interviewer from IFL TV was asking him uncomfortable questions about contracts and things like that, and Lou Dibella was just like, hey, straight up, like, look, I don't see you asking Eddie Hearn or Bob Arum these type of bullshit questions, and don't do it to me. You don't do it because, again, your company or the interviewing company that he works for, IFL TV, depends on a certain amount of interviews. Okay, so you have to interview Eddie Hearn, so don't say nothing that's going to piss him off, like it won't piss me off. And it made a lot of sense because he's like, look, if you're not going to ask Eddie Hearn those type of questions, don't ask me those type of questions. And if you do, again, I won't interview with you. Simple as that. That is the New York in Lou Dibella. That's the New York in Lou Dibella. And that's an example of how he doesn't give a shit. He doesn't need people like IFL or interviews like the interviewers to keep him important or in the limelight. He is who he is. He's going to do the fights he's going to do. And yes, he's not with those three. So since he's not with those three, he's not making the type of money that he should be making, or he should feel that he is making. Okay, but that's how it goes, because not a lot of people are spending a lot of money on U.S. boxing except those three, okay, that I mentioned or whatnot. But no, he talked about, the streaming services, how valuable they are, how valuable, DAZN and ESPN Plus. If you have DAZN, you're going to have ESPN Plus, and really fans should really stop. If you're a true fan, you shouldn't care what network something's on. You know what I mean? That's just like, for example, when Joshua and Wilder back in 18, Joshua wasn't exclusive to DAZN, so that fight could have been on Showtime. Who gave a fuck? So was what was showcased also on Showtime was the Klitschko Joshua fight. That was also on Showtime. Yes, at 3 p.m. on a Saturday, but it was still aired on Showtime, and it was one of the best fights that I ever seen in that year. Okay? But did I give a shit if it was on DAZN or ESPN or and Dibella is absolutely right. If you got to sit here and try to diss a particular network, you're not a boxing fan. You're not. Especially after you hear a fight is being made and then, PBC got it or they bought the rights to this particular fight. Okay, they bid them out. Okay? So what? If the fight's going to be over there, what's wrong with that? You're going to see an interesting night of boxing, I can tell you that much. Let's just say Joshua Wilder was on Fox, PBC, or Showtime. Because then I think Steven Espinosa will then arise with interest to want to bring Deontay Wilder back then after that, because he knows Joshua brings the money. We all know that. But let's say that fight came. Then Showtime or PBC decides to have that fight, or Showtime outbids Fox, or they collaborate with Fox. Because, like, again, Joshua's that guy, that key guy, that in Wilder's that other key guy. And then that fight happens. Boom. Okay. Then why would you care if the shit was on PBC or Fox? It's happening. The fight is happening. You know what I mean? So it doesn't matter, because it has to be a reason why you like certain networks, or because certain fighters fight on those networks. That should be the only reason. That's why I never understood about American football. Like, if you have these these players over here, all of them, they all played on Dallas Cowboys, and you're a Dallas Cowboy fan, but it's supposed to be you're a Dallas Cowboy fan due to who's the players on that team. Now, let's say all of them get traded to the Bears, Chicago. Why would you still become a Cowboy fan? So that's my analogy about networks and fighters. So it doesn't really matter as long as you're getting the best fight the best. As Lou Dibella also said, you don't want to see a no chancer versus an undefeated fighter. You already know the outcome. We don't need showcase fights like that. We don't have time for that. And one thing that hit me, I had a first cousin. We watched boxing ever since we were kids. Okay, we watched everything from Roy Jones, the Trinidad fights, the De La Hoyas, the Gottis, the Barreras, the Pacquiaos, the Floyds. We saw all these fights together, okay? And in 2009, when the interest of Manny Pacquiao versus Floyd Money Mayweather, that interest peaked. And people wanted to see that fight, and that fight built, and it built, and it built, and it built, and it got bigger. The interest got stronger because both fighters were still winning. That same cousin, we were waiting to see that fight. Okay? And we waited, and we waited, and we freaking waited. Well, that cousin is no longer with us because he passed in 2013. So that's what I'm saying. If we learn anything about life and about entertainment, It's about wanting to see the best fight the best. Why are we wasting time, our life, our precious time, looking at something we really didn't ask for and we really don't want to see? Okay, like let's say Floyd and Manny fought in 2012. My cousin would have been able to see that fight. We would have enjoyed that together. That would have been a good memory because it's all about what you pay to see, who you're with, and and how you enjoy the fight. You know, what type of experience you had, the place you were at, were you at a bar, were you at home, were you at a fight party? You know what I'm saying? That's what's important about entertainment. Okay, it's more than just the fight. If you're a fight fan, I look at it a lot deeper because I had fight parties at my house when I was like in my early 20s. Okay, and I absolutely loved it, and we had a spectacular time. And yes, that cousin was included. So we enjoyed a lot of things. But big fights like that take so long because the boxing, the business of boxing is so shitty, explained by Lou Dibella, that people wait and they die waiting for fights. You know what I mean? I don't want to die waiting for fucking Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. I don't want to die waiting for something like that. You know what I mean? You want to see those fights now. You want to see all the actors and all this, they come to this big spectacle, this big event. You know what I mean? So, yeah, things should happen now, And Lou Dibella was like, hey, you have to have quality control. You have to make wise decisions about boxing because you have to know boxing. And, I think he was referring to Al Haymon with that. You have to know what's really best instead of the money, right? But he didn't say Al Haymon. But what he did say is Eddie Hearn. Now, this is what he said about Eddie Hearn. He said, well, look, Eddie Hearn is a good promoter if it's, you have Tyson Fury and Joshua. They are arguably number 2 and number 3, the best fighters in the world behind Lennox Lewis. Okay? Sure, if Saudi Arabia is putting up money and outbidding everybody, sure, I can understand the money grab. But actually, like I already counterpunched. Why wouldn't you have that in London? Right? You have the number 2 and number 3, or the number 1 and number 3, or the number 1 and number 2 best heavyweights in the world. Right? And we have to see who 2 and 3 is if they fall. Both from the UK, and the fight's not happening in the UK. He said that's you could go to Saudi Arabia, but actually that's kind of sad. Imagining Wembley Stadium filled up with 100,000 people, because that would sell like 100,000 people. That would do those numbers, and it would probably break another number, a pay-per-view number, past the Ruiz Joshua 2, if that happened in the UK. But I also have other reasons why it shouldn't be in the UK, and that's a whole nother video. Stay tuned for that. Anyhow, Lou Dibella just told people how the game went, how it is in the sport of boxing, and you have to know boxing you have to be a boxing fan to understand what you want in the sport of boxing, and that's just so very important. It was a very informative interview, and he just broke it down in his own words, in his charismatic, colorful words that he loves to use. It was a good interview, and I think you guys should check it out. Anyway, you guys tell me what you think about the interview with Lou Dibella. I will leave the link below so you guys can check it out when you get time, after this video, of course. Leave your comments below. Please subscribe. And you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.